April 29th, 2019 meeting of the East Long Meadow Town Council. We'll open the meeting now with a pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Good idea. Quartermaster will bring out the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We ask that you keep our first responders and our service men and women around the globe in your thoughts this evening. Pursuant to Massachusetts general law, this meeting is being taped, and I have to ask if there's anybody present in the audience who is audio or videotaping, and if they are, please identify. Seeing none, I guess we're good to go. Public comments, Mr. Florence, none.
No public comments.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are council comments. Anyone? Okay. Then we are moving to the primary reason for our presence here this evening, the financial matters under 5A, the presentation and discussion of the town manager's proposed FY 2020 budget.
Good evening, everyone. I should have put a $5 tag on these so they went like hotcakes. I have more printing because, as somebody noted, they were hot off the press. Literally, took them off as I was running out the door. So there are more available for anybody that wants it. We can post it online, and if you let me know that you want a copy electronically, I can send that to you. Sarah called, and the director of finance called and said that she is detained. Her babysitter was stuck on the turnpike, so she's on her way. A little frantic. She'll be here, but I'll talk slowly. Thank you to everybody that inquired about my health. I am feeling much better after a restful weekend, and thank you all for your concerns. So this evening, I'm presenting the town manager's proposed budget for the fiscal year that begins July 1st, 2019, and ends June 30th, 2020. Both the budget and capital plan recommended this evening have been updated from the draft budget that was presented to the council on March 26th. As in past years, the proposed fiscal year 2019-20 budget was completed collaboratively with all town departments. The council asked for an explanation to any increases over last year's budgeted amounts, with the exception of contracted obligations. Those explanations, abbreviated, have been incorporated in the uses portion of this presentation. I'm confident that you'll find this evening's proposal reflects a well-rounded plan that addresses the needs of the community today while looking toward East Long Meadow's future needs. The last few years' budgets focused on upgrades to the East Long Meadow Public Safety Organization, while maintaining the outstanding quality of the community's education and other services. The response from the community to those priorities having been implemented has been extremely positive. I constantly have people coming in the office. They always talk about education as being something to be proud of in the community. The ambulance service being added has been definitely something noted by a lot of residents in town. Even the dispatch, I've had comments from, I have to go for various reasons to other town halls, and there's been mention of our dispatching at a new level. Not a criticism to the past, but there were police officers. We're glad to have them on the street and glad to have that done as well. So a lot of focus was put on public safety. This year, with those major investments in place, this year's priority is to maintain the quality of services throughout East Long Meadow and attract and retain the personnel needed to continue the level of services and that the residents and businesses are requesting. To follow are some highlights of this year's proposed budget. General fund sources, the projected revenue for fiscal year 2020. There are a few changes in the projected revenue this year. They include a decrease in our new growth. The extremely high rate of growth in taxable property we experienced last year is not expected to continue at the same rate. I think, wow, Sarah, you must have broken some speed records.
She did. I had an excellent time. There's a cruiser waiting
That's
for
yours
her.
right there.
Did you come in that cruiser?
I was gonna say, looks like the Blues Brothers out there.
You can sit up there. Yeah. Sarah and I were talking about it today. I think she said last year there were 40 new taxable properties that came online.
There were 40 properties in construction, now there are only 9.
Yeah, so
Nine.
9. But 40 is extraordinary, and we can't bank on having that every year. A proposed increase in other state aid, which is, it's proposed. You know, the governor proposes something, the legislature proposes something, they fall somewhere in between. So there's some changes in there, but that's not something that we can actually bank on. Increases in income from licensing and permitting. You all recall that the licensing subcommittee really revamped a lot of the licensing. That in coordination with a building official and a health inspector that are really doing a lot of permitting and licensing up to code, up to where we are supposed to be, has really been reflected in the income side and should continue. And an increase in our bank interest. There were some changes made with the tax collector change and treasurer tax collector change. We made a change in our lockbox.
Yeah, in the bank that we work with for our lockbox, yes.
Yeah, so it was, and interest rates. So those are really the main on the revenue side. On the fiscal 2020 uses, there are some larger than normal salary increases, and that's really the big thing to focus on here. We're not going to try to hide it, but we can try to explain it to you all. Union contracts were still in negotiation during the budget season last year. In order to continue bargaining in good faith, we could not project budget increases for those bargaining unit employees. Therefore, increases in a majority of salaries were not incorporated in last year's budget, with the expectation, and we were clear about this in last year's presentation, that we would either take it from reserve fund, unused funds in the departments, because departments turn back money, so we rebalance at the end of the year, or a transfer from fund balance if needed. The wage study. It was completed this fiscal year by the Collins study. The study recommended changes to both union and management wages. Although some salaries were found to be higher than average and recommended to remain at current rates, many were recommended to be increased, and a few were found to be in a wrong pay grade altogether, which then looks like a huge increase because the grade, they were bumped up a grade and
Into a
then
different column,
increases
yeah.
in as well. So they were reclassed, and that made a difference. The study also stated, and I'm quoting, that the majority of the management positions are significantly below market rate. As a priority to try to retain the quality department heads that we had to address that. And in fact, some of the, when I came on board, and I didn't realize this, some department heads had not had increases in like 7 years. So there was a lot of catching up to do there. And minimum wage, it sort of, I hate to say it's a perfect storm because it wasn't a perfect storm, but there were a lot of challenges this year in those things. East Long Meadow employs a lot of minimum wage people, and minimum wage has gone up this year, will be going up next year, I think for the next couple of years until it hits $15, right?
Correct.
2023. So, the projected tax rate. As in previous years, the Director of Finance and I are very conservative in our projections for the tax rate at this early point of the year. there's nothing that's really concrete at this juncture. Major portion of the town's revenue comes from the state, and those numbers are not yet solidified. So we always use the most conservative revenue projections. As always, both the Director of Finance and I are always available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Janice Menard, Town Manager. So, that's the beginning. Sarah and I did go over with a very fine-tooth comb all of the budgets, so there are tweaks, there are changes. I don't know that there are hugely significant. What I would think the most significant you will find are in the capital. There was some reshuffling of capital stuff. And how much is every penny?
About 20,000.
So every penny that we came down is $20,000 worth of cuts that we made. So at one point I was driving in last week saying, what we're doing, to tweak some department from, having 10 sheets of paper a day to 20 sheets of paper a day, or vice versa, really, we really had a very difficult time trying to figure out how to bring it down. The next level, of course, is yours. You'll see some changes, as I said, in the capital projects, especially. We did some creative thinking about some of that. So the sources, if you look at the sheet, if you have any questions about any of those, I brought the last presentation, so I can.
This slide has no changes since the initial presentation. There are no changes on this one. The revenue stayed the same.
Exclusive of contractual obligations, in the operational budget, obviously the revenue is probably going to stay the same as I think you just said that.
Yes.
For now.
Competing with the background
Sorry,
noise
I'll
of the
talk
fans.
louder.
That's okay. In the operational budget, are you able to summarize any adjustments you made, again, exclusive of salary, of contractual obligations?
There were a couple of proposed positions that we eliminated. There was a part-time position in the clerk's office that we thought, with the redistribution of that office now coming under, they will be moving May 7th officially into the suite of offices I have. So that will change the whole dynamic, I think. We are adding a new service similar to what Marge has on her side for the town clerk to have, but they all, right now, our folks all share the phones. And in trying to figure, it is an federal election year next year. However, they did handle the last one extremely well. So I think with the new dynamic, hopefully we can make it work. If not, we've got another year to do that adjustment. There was also an adjustment in the finance offices, and Sarah, you can explain that.
Yeah. I reduced the purchasing manager position to a part-time position to help with the concerns about OPEB and all of that. I do believe I have enough work to keep a person busy full-time, but to try to help with the budget cuts, then I reduced it to a half-time to be able to at least have some help rather than none. The capital decreased a net 75,000, so that's quite a bit. I will talk more about the capital, but there were some very creative things there that I think that then we met a lot of what some of the council members were asking for, while really minimizing the shift in the budget, which I think was really good.
Do you have any other questions on the uses on the different departments in particular?
Oh, I'm sorry. Another thing that we did do was for the fire department. Instead of that position being 10 months, we changed that to 3 months.
So the last quarter of the year. Our thought was, and the fire chief is on board for it, that if we just funded the last portion of the year, we've sort of solidified that there's a need for that position, and going forward, it's in the budget, but we don't, he's willing to do without it for 3/4 of this year. The captain's position is also just a half year. I think it was prior as well.
That
but
one was prior,
It is a
yes.
half year for us to, a captain of the police department, for us to get that in order and make sure that we cross all the Ts for civil service and union and all
And-
of that.
And then, I'm sorry, as I'm calming down from my frantic rush to get here, I'm thinking better. The IT department did make some adjustments to theirs. The non-salary pieces, some of the items were put in based on expectations of useful life, and so we said we will cut it, and if the worst case scenario happens, then we might need to come for either free cash or a reserve fund should something catastrophic happen, but that in the normal operations. So we reduced that department. And then the DPW, Bruce reduced in utilities and the building department in order
Maintenance,
to
building maintenance.
the building maintenance department in order to add to the highway department to incorporate the 45,000 that was requested for the fields, the 20,000 and the 25,000 for the fertilization and the extra help. So that was a net zero impact, but it did incorporate that request based on the last meeting.
So we did try to creatively come up with ways and and every large department we had conversations with, and they all stepped up. It was a good process. Thank you, Gordon, Chairman Fichero, Paul. I guess they're the only ones that are here, but.
So through the chair, so can you clarify what Ryan, he still needs the position, the full-time position. The
Right.
2 part-time positions are still there for the
Right.
summer help. So what did he take off?
It's in the other expenses portion, the non-salary portion of his actual department budget.
Right.
There were things like
I know he had
certain
Google
kinds of-
licenses, he had,
software. What we're trying to do is bring all the software and hardware into the IT. Right now, some of it is splintered all over the place. But there were,
Well, for example, we reduced he had in there a budget for vehicle repairs, but because we were able to use one of the retiring police vehicles to be able to give
Right.
to him, which is in much better shape than his current vehicle, we were able to reduce the repairs line now that he knows that he's getting that. The telephone line, because we have that on the capital that we are going to be upgrading the telephones, that therefore the repairs for telephones we were able to decrease.
but again, those are.
Things like that.
That's why we were kind of getting to a panicky state, because that might be $1,000 less.
nothing that
or-
impacted the one-to-one initiative? There's
No.
No,
In fact,
because you mentioned software,
no.
that's why I was just asking
No.
for
No,
clarification.
and
so-
actually, the software, it was when we were doing the nitty-gritty, we did discover
Some duplication.
that the police department had the police software on it, as did the IT department, so we removed it from the police department.
And put
we
it all
only
in
had there,
IT.
But we had both there to make sure that we weren't missing something, so we did go line by line to try where we could, but without cutting anything critical.
And the one-on-one, we'll explain the capital piece in more detail, because that's where the really more creative things came in. And the one-on-one is one of those that was impacted.
Yes.
$895?
My question is,
Yes.
how is, are, if at all, any of these budgets affected by, whether the police budget, by the fact that apparently we have a new police officer that wasn't there last week, and there's gonna be costs related to that, both retroactive and going forward, so.
There was a position in the budget
not
for
filled.
a
Oh, okay.
non-filled,
Okay.
so that person will go right into that role.
Wonderful. All right.
So there still might be some expenses there,
Well,
but
I would assume the
yeah.
back pay.
is a big piece.
But the back pay would be part of FY19, not FY20.
Right, right.
So
And was
on-
planned.
on that similar topic, what does that decision by civil service do to our legal liability line item?
Well, as you and I talked a little bit, certainly we've been paying the legal bills all the way through. that there is a request, a possible request out there for the other side's legal services. We have not discussed that, and in fact, we're going to have a meeting with the town attorney tomorrow about the whole decision. That would impact the budget, for sure. We would have to probably come for a transfer for that. But right now, as I've sort of kept you up to date, legal has been a little high. Part of it is not so much that particular case. The one that is really burning a lot of legal is that solar appeal. It's a really difficult. They're asking for a lot of document production, depositions, a lot of stuff that is costing us in legal time.
Kathy, I just got a question.
Yes, sure.
That one, is that the land court one?
Yes. Yeah. So more than anything else, we would be right on track if it wasn't for a couple of those lawsuits. A lot of them I have covered by Maya, our insurance carrier, and they have good attorneys that are doing a good job for us there.
Is that not something they'll cover?
I'm sorry,
The land court one, Maya won't cover that?
not covered.
Worth asking.
Hmm?
It's worth asking.
Yeah. Oh, I always. That's the standard. Standard instruction is send every lawsuit to Maya first. Let them say no before we spend a legal dollar. And they're pretty fast on saying, yeah, we'll take it, or no, it's not
They're
covered for
usually pretty
this
good at
reason.
telling you, anyway. I just
Yeah.
didn't know if they would.
Yeah.
So the last major change for the uses category is if you go down to the debt section, which is on page 9. So in the short-term borrowing, just so then I could make it easier for everyone to see, I did increase that. On the original presentation, it was 50,000.
So it's almost at the bottom.
And it's now a $65,000 increase, so now it's $115,000. That takes into account the bonding for the school, the Meadowbrook roof that was voted recently, at the worst-case scenario of $1.9 million. And it also takes into account all of the changes that we have done to capital. So actually, even with this increase, with the changes that we did with capital, we actually still reduced the whole budget. And I believe we're moving on to capital next, so.
There you go.
So just unless somebody else has a question, just to help me put this
Yeah.
all in my head. In the original requests that were shown in the draft budget presentation, there were requests for 9 full-time and 4 part-time
Yes.
individuals. So I hear you say that.
We reduced one full-time to part-time and eliminated one part-time.
Eliminated 1 part-time and reduced a full-time, which was the procurement.
The procurement manager, correct.
Manager from full to part.
But we also reduced the
The
amount
fire
of time that the fire
position.
deputy is being funded.
So that individual would only be picked up in the last quarter of this calendar year, but in 2020 would then become
Be a
full-time.
full-time. So
No,
In
our,
the same
no.
ration, no?
No, the last quarter of 2020
2021.
right, that's what
fiscal
she said.
year.
You come out at full-time
And then
in
be full-time in
2021.
2022.
Okay.
Or 22, really.
You were off for a year.
Can we skip a year?
Yeah, 2021.
21.
Yeah, I'm thinking of it the same way, so.
Yeah.
we're
I'm sorry,
talking-
I'm talking
So
fiscal
we're
year,
talking.
which is what our budget.
We're talking this time next year.
Yes.
He'll be on.
Full-time, and
We'll have
then
to-
As of
started.
July
He'll keep on
1st
going.
of next year,
He
he'll
keeps
be
going.
full-time, which is the
Which is
2021 budget.
Right.
Got
That's
it.
what you
Yes.
said, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're,
I said it in different.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I got confused.
So he'll be-
You're correct.
You're right,
Yes, you're correct.
so we're thinking calendar and fiscal.
Right.
right.
2021, he'll be full impact, benefits, retirement, all of which.
Yes.
So
And
our
then the same
Make
with
you
the
happy.
police captain
Benefits from retirement.
won't come on for till the.
half year,
The half year.
right. Now, our concerns as far as making additional cuts to, for instance, the school side's request, was that if we're headed down a path of socio-emotional sort of flipping the programs into more concentration in that. Both Sarah and I don't have the expertise to say that's something, that would be something that the council would discuss with the school board, we would think. Regarding Ryan's requests, we're giving him how many more computers? And he's asking for one full-time person and
Summer help.
these 2 summer interns. That's a pretty conservative, we thought a pretty conservative amount.
Yeah, we vetted that out pretty well. I mean,
Yeah.
We went over
Yeah.
that in nauseam, so we're,
And compared
good
to
there.
other IT departments, I guess he hasn't had an increase in staff in a very long time, but certainly an increase in the services side that he's being asked to.
so procedurally from here, you guys, the subcommittee's continued to meet.
Subcommittee's going to
has
be
been,
meeting.
but has been meeting. So then you'll take this and look at all the positions and then all the capital and then, so are you gonna do that before the next meeting or is it the meeting after that?
My recollection is, I'm looking at Ms. Sonia in the audience here, the Finance Subcommittee's meeting on the 8th and the 10th of May,
That's correct.
and possibly more.
Yes, we will have the report to you hopefully by the 21st of May.
Okay, so at some point, if your report is at the 21st, then that just leaves us, we don't have a meeting on the 21st, we'd have to create one. And we also need to do the public hearing
Right.
on the budget.
So the chairman and Sarah and I are meeting on Wednesday.
Okay,
Maybe we can come up with a more firm, when you need to have the public hearing and if maybe your committee might have to meet more at the front end. They each have a copy of the budget. The members of the council have a copy, so they might be able to just sort of get the ball rolling before we just, I've got the stack of documents that they asked for, one copy done today. I'm going for the wage study, but I'm off tomorrow, so Wednesday I'll be getting that together, which they requested. So they'll have all the information, probably the 1st or the 2nd. Maybe they were anticipating that they would not have it until later. The other piece is that you and I talked about the council probably needing to vote, to have a meeting the opposite Tuesdays as well as the current Tuesdays that y'all meet.
yes, because the net result is, the Finance Committee is going to take another hard look at this, at this budget, the proposed budget, and then come before us and make a recommendation. And then at that point, we can ask questions of the subcommittee. We still need to have time to do a public hearing, and based on the input from the subcommittee as well as from anyone in the public, then we have to hang our hats on a budget for June 1st. Am I saying that correctly, everyone?
That's correct.
So I'm thinking logically, we can't get all that done with just a May 14 and a May 28th typical regularly scheduled meeting. That there's going to have to be at least a meeting on the 7th or the 21st, because we need at least a week's breathing room between the public hearing and our final decisions, so that we can
It
deliberate.
doesn't sound like we'll know anything more on the 7th. Then we are essentially gonna walk out of here
No, we're not going to
today.
know anything more
So
on the
maybe
7th.
we do one in between our normal
That's
scheduled and then our
14,
last.
21, and 28, right?
That's
So are we gonna
correct.
have the public hearing on the 28th?
No, no.
Or it's gotta be the
No,
one in the middle?
Yeah, the
So
one in the middle.
what you can,
Because
you
it's gotta
can
be
have the
June 1st.
public hearing, my experience in the past is that you have a public hearing on the proposed budget. And you take those comments, and so would the Financial Oversight Committee, because you're gonna have looked at
Yeah,
it.
let's do it.
Now you're gonna have
That's-
the public
That's how we
look
did it
at
last
it.
year.
And-
We sat
right.
down, we took this document,
And that's
did a
what you
public
go to
hearing on
public
this
hearing
document.
with.
then we met.
Mhm.
It was a little different just because of timing, but That's how it worked out last time.
Right.
We never even began the meeting until after the public hearing. Then we looked at it, took the comments from the public hearing,
And
comments from
shaved
everybody
where
at
we
the
needed
council,
to.
and then we looked at it, met with Gordon and his people and the department heads separately on that committee after the public
And then
hearing was
came back
already
with
done.
final- yeah,
And then
that's
came
right.
back with a final product.
So you
why don't
could
we
have-
You can do the
advertise
public
that
hearing
for
anytime.
next
Yeah.
meeting, our
Could you
first
do it-
meeting of May?
So,
Or May 7th. Would we have the time to
we don't have a
adver-
May 7th on the books.
But you could
We
if you
could.
wanted to
We
do the
can,
public hearing
yes.
then and get it early.
That's
so
not a
that
bad
they-
idea. It's not a bad idea. I don't mind that.
I'm
you have
looking
the time
to
to
our
advertise?
two folks in the audience who are on the
No.
finance committee. Having the benefit of the
Can't.
public on the 7th likely can inform your thinking when you meet on the 8th and the 10th.
They can't, you don't have time to advertise.
You gotta advertise first. When
So
can it be
the
done?
Scratch
14th.
that.
So do the public hearing on the 14th
Yeah.
at 5 or 5:30.
I think that's a better idea, just because our finance committee will have at least 2 dates that are already pre-scheduled.
Right. And it's likely you'll meet
It's just
that
more
one, too.
information, so,
Yeah.
if we use both those dates.
We did it, the way the days fall, we did it on the 21st 2 years ago, on the 22nd last year, the public hearing. But they gave us a full week and a half to the end of May. This year, the second meeting is May 28th, which
Right,
is,
yeah, the way the calendar.
Yeah, which is-
Yeah,
fell.
too close.
So you want to do that then, our first scheduled meeting of May?
If
and
everybody
have-
feels that, yes, on the 14th, public hearing, that information, again, will
Better do-
inform the
Right, you better do the
subcommittee.
public hearing first.
Right.
before the subcommittee.
Yes, I'm okay with that,
Yep.
so,
So the 14th will be the public hearing.
correct.
Did you-
And
At what
do
time?
5, we need all the clock time we can get between here and June
They've already met
1st.
so many times.
So, if I may, so the 14th would be the public hearing,
Uh-huh.
and then the subcommittee would need to meet to be able to
They'll continue
discuss
to meet.
whatever was gone, what went on there. So then the next meeting would be the 21st, right?
We'd have to put one on the 21st.
So we put one on the 21st, and the subcommittee would present what they are thinking.
we
And then
will
you wanted
deliberate with
a
them.
then you wanted a week in between for then the council to decide, and so then the council would meet on the 28th and tell us how to adjust it, and then we'd hold another special one right before the June 1st,
Well,
or
we're
then the
running up
council would
against
decide on the
it.
21st.
28th to June 1st doesn't leave a lot of days.
No, so that's why I want to just clarify now, if then, how that's gonna work.
Right after the committee meets.
Say that again, say that out loud.
I'm
I'm
doing the
trying-
public hearing, when, the 14th?
Public hearing will be
14th.
the 14th,
At
beginning at 5
o'clock,
PM.
yep.
And that's what, a Tuesday?
A Tuesday.
Tuesday, right?
That's our regular
So then we
meeting.
can have a special meeting just for that. Once the committee meets, the subcommittee meets, comes up with all the information that they have. It's not like it's a foreign document, they've
No,
looked
no,
at it
no,
already,
no,
so
right.
whatever.
Just
comes
got
out of
better.
that-
You guys have
Out of
already
that,
met
you
on
need
this.
maybe day to meet.
You guys have already met on this. And
We
it's,
could have
it
a
just got
special
better,
meeting any
you know? It went down a little bit.
Any
The
day,
dates sound like they're
just to do,
starting.
like we did last year, you just do this and that's it. Come in and do the budget and be done. We don't have to,
Like
we don't have to
that,
wedge it into.
that
Yeah,
same
just
week,
schedule,
only a
that's all I'm
different,
saying.
an odd day, not a
We can do the 21st
Tuesday.
if we had to.
Right.
Yeah.
That gives
Wanna
them
keep it
more
on
time to
Tuesday.
get what they
So
need
that
done.
we would feel comfortable with a final, our version of a recommendation for a final product on the 21st.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That'll give us, we'll have plenty of time.
21st should be.
So I would think on the 14th, you have the public hearing at 5. You still have time to put on your agenda at that same night, discussion of the budget, and you can talk about what happened at the public hearing, and you can have
Absolutely,
a transition kind of report from the subcommittee saying, here's what we're thinking so far. We've also heard tonight blah, so, you know, I mean, so you have that night, the 14th, to also discuss it.
Yep. Then we have another week to, you know, everybody
But we need
to,
to build a meeting in for the 21st.
21st, yeah.
Right.
Then the
Right.
21st would give us a week. We'd have all the refinements. We can come in, we can have a collaborative discussion, make decisions, make, you know, recommendations to any final adjustments, and then we should be, gives us a little bit of buffer.
So you'll make the recommendations on the 21st?
Sure.
And then we'll come back on the 28th with then the final result of that.
And then we
for
can
the
vote on
official
it.
vote,
Right.
correct?
We can, yeah, that makes sense. Took a
And
little
if-
while, but
If you find on the
figured it out.
21st that you didn't get far enough, and you have to have a special meeting.
Right, we'll just
And
keep
call
building.
it.
Between,
Meantime, too, right?
yeah,
Like,
that day
right.
and the next Tuesday, prior to that, so that we have time to put the process together for you.
Depending how many changes. Unless you're like, this is beautiful and perfect.
Although we're getting pretty good at making changes.
So we're clear on that then?
Clear as
Public
Good.
hearing on the 14th at 5. The subcommittee will continue to meet throughout based on their needs. And on the 14th, we have the opportunity to ask other questions as well.
Public will do the comments then, right? 14th, public's gonna do.
Public will do
public comment
comments
comes in
then, right.
Right, and you could have like a subcommittee preliminary report at
Yep.
that point.
If,
Give
yeah,
you all
if they're
ideas,
ready.
you know?
In 21, we're gonna meet again.
21st is their recommendations?
21st, Ms. Sonia, is the 21st, listening to this rationale, does the 21st sound like you'd be able to reach?
I believe so. We
Okay.
just had a quick discussion. We're going to add a couple more meetings
Okay.
perhaps this week,
Perfect.
if we can get it posted in time
Yep.
and so forth. And it's doable for us.
Okay, perfect. So then on the 21st, your quote-unquote final, maybe, recommendation to the council, we can debate, come up with a decision, gives you till then.
That
about
week.
A week to clean it up and then make the numbers as hard as possible.
That works. Good plan.
Fair enough. So, Mr. Florence, you'll add that 21st meeting in?
Yes.
Thank you.
In the public hearing.
Yes. Okay, well, we got a little off track. Now, do you want to speak about the capital?
Sure. So we had, let me just go to the end of the document, of uses. Our original was a 6.3% increase, and we reduced it to a 6% increase.
About $165,000 decrease.
In the capital request. I see some, a sentence in here in bold, under information technology as of today. That line item was,
Oh, I'll explain all of them.
you're
because-
ready
yeah.
to do, okay.
Yeah, I'm not skipping ahead, however, we
You're
have the
skipping
graph.
ahead.
You're reading ahead. The proposed mill rate that we, tax rate that we had prior was 22.15, and we've gotten it down a whole 6 cents. No, 8 cents.
8
8 cents. And each penny is a $20,000.
roughly.
Okay.
Which again is still a conservative projection.
Correct.
So if
Absolutely.
hypothetically, we could adopt it all and we could potentially come in sub 22
Oh,
if.
Oh, yeah,
If-
we expected.
If I were a betting person, I would say yes. If I
Yeah.
were to gamble.
What kind of odds would you give us?
I'd give us really good odds. So far I haven't been wrong, so.
Every year, her
See if your
projections
streak
are higher
continues.
than.
Mm-hmm.
See if our streak continues.
It will.
I would bet that it is, that it will.
If we're on, are we on capital?
Yes,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
And this is something that came up in review over the weekend when I'm looking at this. If we're gonna do the first item, which is the Allen Street landfill closure, and we're doing, allocating $75,000 to do the study, what is the penalty from the state if we choose not to do the study this year? Because we don't have $1.5 million next year. So I guess my question is, we've essentially preemptively started to do this, but they haven't mandated we do this. And is there a penalty if we don't do it?
There will be a penalty at some point. We have told them, and they have agreed in good faith, that we will start looking at it, because we're just about capped on the other, we're closing the Summers Road landfill. That's coming to an end, and they've already come to us and said, so now that that's coming to an end, you need to do something about this Allen Street.
Right.
What are you doing?
But
And
there's gotta be some state money coming at some point. It just, there's no way, and there's other ones besides this. So my point is,
I think even
can we get away
25,000 would be.
for another year?
I think even a small amount would be better than zero. Just because we're dealing with the DEP, we don't want them to mandate to us, and then we're stuck. Then we have to do bigger pieces. If we at
And they
least,
mandate, put a timeframe on it. That's what they're gonna do.
what's that?
If we don't put any money toward it, they're gonna mandate it and put a
And it'll
timeframe on
be-
it.
and
So
it'll
then when
be
they say
bigger
1.5
pieces.
million,
And,
that's the number you're gonna
and I
use.
understand that, and
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to say, why not wait till someone gives us money, because we don't have the money.
They're not gonna give us money.
How,
Why not?
how long will the project take?
Oh, years and years.
So,
Yeah.
But are we gonna are they gonna come and say, okay, yes, it needs to be done, it needs to be fenced and capped?
At some point, they'll issue an
Next
order.
year,
Right.
but
They'll
I'm
issue
saying,
an order.
we do the study, and then next year they say, the study says, yes, you need $1.5 million to do the project, and then we have to allocate that next year?
No.
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 because it'll be over 5 years.
Again, as long as you show that you are
Working
committed
toward
to
it.
doing some piece of it, they'll let you go at your pace, as long as it's reasonable. It can't be $1 a year. But if you say zero, then they're saying they have no intention of following our recommendation. We will then make it an order, and instead of, take it in little pieces, you've got
Here's the
5
thing.
years to do $50 million worth of work, figure it out.
Because they could also then say, if you're not gonna do it on this one, how about the others? And make it in order for all of them, not just this one. Because we
Right.
know that there's more than just this one.
I'm just, again, guys, I'm not saying that's a smart idea to do it. I know that there are other towns that are pushing back because they do not have the money. They are just saying, okay, we can't do it, what now? And so there's a little bit of an undercurrent starting to stir. I don't know if we should be talking to Lesser or Pupolo or somebody to ask for, like, what is the plan for some of these other towns that are pushing back?
I can add it to the list that we're talking to
Take
Governor
it to the
Baker
governor
about.
on Thursday.
Yeah, and our money for the jail, where's that?
Yeah, well, that's
I
probably.
know, okay, so I'm not saying take it off, I'm just asking questions if we don't have to allocate
Absolutely.
that huge chunk of money for FY '21, then so be it.
If it helps soften it a little bit, it has been deferred in the
Yeah.
past, so, okay? So we're kind of at the end of the rope.
Yeah, well, they weren't focusing on it quite so much because we were making real good progress on Summers Road. But now
Okay.
that that's coming to an end, they're saying, okay, you did a great
Next.
job there, next. So,
But it's worth asking when you meet with the governor.
yeah. If there's some
It's a lot of
long,
money.
if there's some long-term plans for those kinds of fields that need a lot of remediation, maybe it's something that they are, maybe we're not privy to some plan that they have for helping communities with that hazardous mitigation. We can check.
Didn't have any plan for our water, the MS4 crap.
Okay,
Well said.
I'm good.
So, going down the list, the things that have changed, and you'll see at the top, it says revised today. And those things that have changed, I've put in bold with today's date on them so that they're easy to find. Those that have not changed don't have that note and are not different than the last time we presented the capital. So the first one is the one-to-one Chrome devices. We increased that by $100,000. And it was part of an overall request that we had a conversation with the superintendent and the chairman of the school board, that they increase that project, but they took the Mountain View modulars off for funding for this year, and they're going to postpone that for next year. So they took 1.2 million request off, and we felt that 100,000 on the other side was not
It's a good
an
trade.
unfair amount to ask.
Sounds
And-
reasonable.
And thank you to the school board for making that
Thanks, guys.
change.
All right, I have a question about that.
Uh-huh.
I understand the trade,
Mm-hmm.
not sure I agree with it, but we can't sit here now and promise that next year that'll get funded.
No.
Legally, we can't,
We know that.
No, and they know
Okay.
that.
and that's a gamble. You're,
But it would be the highest priority.
Cooperating with Department of Public Works, so, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, there was a deficit of 100 grand, right, prior to making this adjustment for the one-to-one program. right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
we had cut it.
So-
Oh, I'm in
so
support of
at least
that.
that's been corrected.
So this fully funds that, which takes that item off next year's, which then allows something else to be funded
And keeps those two summer help IT people completely busy.
Oh, we'll be busy.
So the next change is at the top of the next page. And IT agreed to reduce by 20,000 it's a whole, I combined the cell so that all of those repairs and replacements were in one amount. We had originally said, we're not gonna pick and choose whether it's student replacements or staff replacements. We're just gonna give you 50,000 and wherever you think you can put it, use it for that. With the additional 100,000 from, in the new computers, he felt that he could take something out of there as well. On the next page, we added 1.2 million for the road improvements. We took 100,000 out of the regular funding source and added it here as a bonding. So Sarah can explain how that impacts the bottom line of the budgeting.
Right. So we took the 100,000 off of the capital line, instead put it in the bonding. And remember I said that in my debt I went up 65,000? So that was the complete closing cost for all of the projects, including the road improvement. The road improvement, by bonding it, the first full year's payment would be 105,000 by bonding it, and our original recommendation from the capital planning group was 100,000. So we thought that that made more sense, that it still stayed in line with what the capital planning group was intending for the town to commit to, but then by increasing the total overall, it enabled us to do more projects, which is what some of the council members were advocating strongly for. And so we felt that this was a win-win all around, and ultimately actually reduced our overall budget.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Okay, the next change is on the last page of the capital, page 18. And it just reflects that we have moved some of the things. Pine Knoll parking lot, we have the unused money from the casino mitigation money. And I had asked the council a while back if they had ideas for use of that. And we thought that maybe that would be a good use of some of it. I think we have 100,
Somewhere around there, yes.
100,000, so 55 of it going to that. That would be a good use of the project, sort of mitigate some of the cost on that. We could use the whole 100,000 toward capital projects if you wish. And that's something that we didn't commit to, but that's certainly a piece that is open. What I generally try to do is if there's some kind of mitigation money available for something, I like to see it correspond with some thing that would be mitigated. But really, we have not had any impacts from the casinos here. Even traffic-wise, it doesn't seem to be impacting us. So it's money that we can use as we wish. There are no strings attached to it, no reasons that we have to give. If we had an impact and we wanted additional monies, we would go for a grant that goes to the Gaming Commission. Yeah, Gaming Commission, and they would make a determination whether it qualifies or not. But this money is no strings attached. We can use it wherever. So we're committing 55 here, if you all agree. But there's an additional approximately 45 that can be committed someplace else as well. So toward the end of the page, you'll see that there are also a couple of projects that were eliminated, removed from the capital. The modulars at Mountain View and the LED street light project I don't remember if it was taken off the last time, but we've decided to just not do that at this point until we do some more research into the best way to do that, because it's a pretty complicated project. And we need a lot of cooperation from the utility companies. There's a lot of lead time. We're thinking there might be a different way of doing it, but it'll take us time to look at it, so it's not on fire.
Moving on to the enterprise fund. The water enterprise fund, you will notice it changed slightly with the debt, and it's because I received the information from our financial advisor for bonding those couple of water items and the closing costs related to that. So you will notice that change in the water enterprise fund, but otherwise there were no changes. Then moving on to the sewer enterprise fund, the debt changed $100. When I went back, I realized I missed an admin fee, so I changed that. But other than that, that budget has not changed at all. The stormwater enterprise fund, as mentioned on the capital, we have the $45,000 there for the vehicle, but again, no changes to this. The LCAT enterprise fund has no changes. Moving on to the revolving funds, the Chapter 90 in the receipts reserved for appropriation. There were no changes to the revolving funds, both the ones that fall under Section 53E and a half and 53D. Chapter 90 did not change. The receipts reserved for appropriation did change. We removed $50,000 from the fire department's operating budget, and we put that into the ambulance fund. It was for EMT callbacks, and based on the revenues that we have as of today, we believe that the fund can easily support that. So that also helped the fire department's line item to be reduced, but it was put here. So you will notice that change. So we reflected it in the salary line now showing $50,000, and in the revenue line with our increased projection based on what we've received as of today. And reminder that the receipts reserved for appropriation, that we can't vote more than what we have in the bank as of the date of the vote. So that's why we're able to increase it. Even though we think that we're actually going to make more revenue than that, we can't vote on that. And then the remaining slide is the community preservation, and I made no changes to that.
Sarah, do you have current balances as it relates to the revolving funds? I understand the spending limit and the estimated revenues, but can you give us current balances in all of those?
See if I print it. If not, then I can turn on my computer and it will take me 2 minutes.
I believe Chris has those balances.
She does,
I
okay.
think so. This might be pretty cumbersome for her to pull that up right now. Does Chris have that information?
No, I was giving it to her at our meeting on Wednesday.
Oh, then that's fine.
Oh.
That's good. You don't have to pull them up.
Oh, okay, yeah, I did a whole spreadsheet of comparisons and all the
Okay.
balances, so yes, I will be giving that to her on Wednesday. Anything else?
So, question about the casino mitigation fund. Where's that money sit now, and
Any special
can it theoretically
revenue
just sit there and till we come up with a worthy project?
We can,
Yes.
but we get another,
We get another
100,000
100,000 next year.
Next year.
We get it each year.
Yeah.
On the
The-
anniversary?
for,
Yes,
Is it
on
on
the
the
anniversary
think
of
it's
their
coming.
startup date.
Which is August.
August,
Yeah,
end
of August, yeah.
yeah,
And it's for the duration of their gaming license, if I remember.
It's 5 years.
It's
5
5
years,
years.
yeah. And then there will be discussion about it.
Right.
At that point, I mean, it could continue, but.
And again, this is the first I've,
Yeah,
had to
I
think
would
about it,
too.
but, the Pine Knoll parking lots absolutely need to be done at some point. Those get a lot of use. It's a pretty critical, asset for the town for the summer months, and lots of kids accessing that, and it just continues to erode away, the way the road is, with the pitch of the road and stuff. So I'm not, saying it's not an unworthy project, it's just now that the funds are available, we should probably at some point make that an agenda item, discuss, even if we use some of it for that, and then there's money left over to figure out, what we should be allocating that money towards. this year and next,
There
probably
should
not
be
a
a plan
bad
for
waste
it.
of time.
Yeah, I agree.
But, no, it's,
The
I
reason we
mean,
didn't
it's a
touch
creative way to address it, because those parking lots have to be done at some point.
Well,
The
part
reason it
of
wasn't
the,
touched before, Joe, is because we didn't know when they were gonna
Yeah.
open, what the impact
Yeah.
was gonna
Right.
be.
Yeah,
It
no,
could-
that
it-
Yeah, I remember discussing
The
that.
trigger date was the trigger date for the beginning of the payout to the various towns was upon their opening, and then that's the anniversary, right, Paul?
right.
Yes.
Well, the good thing is we kind of forgot about it, but now it's available, and we, it's a creative way to address it. I mean, I don't know if that's what we vote on, to use it in that manner, but then it sounds like there'll be a little left over, and then something we can think of as well as moving towards next year.
Well, you'll have, by summer, you'll have 145.
Right.
Or 200. My concern with the parking lot, that it be funded at somewhere this year, is that once we know that there's an issue that could create a fall or,
It's a liability. Nobody
Yeah,
challenges
we
that.
own the hip that breaks after we know that, and we all are aware of it.
No, it's pretty
now.
bad.
It is in really, really bad shape.
I don't oppose at all the paving of the Pine Knoll. Last year, the director had it on, and when we were shuffling and trying to trim, she took it off, and so I respect that it needs to get done. As far as the mitigation monies go, I'm of the opinion that we should try to use them to mitigate some of the potential problems that the casino impact could have created for us, like increased traffic or problems that spill out of the casino at the wee hours of the morning that
Police
take their
force,
way
right.
back here. I could see my way clearly saying, take the whole 100,000 this year and reduce the 1.2 million to 1.1, because that's going for streets, and at least, I feel like I could justify that better in the same breath as I would,
Give them 55,000.
but give them
Same breath.
55, well, yes, but
That's one way or the other.
we're
yeah.
bonding though, so we're taking a little bite off of our debt.
Right, but I'm just saying, in that same,
Well, we still, I would say we still have an obligation
Do
to
the parking.
Pine
Yeah.
Knoll.
But, no, actually, that's actually a good thought, because, Bruce was initially requesting 100,000, then we were saying the recommended 600, why don't we do more? They've come back with a bonding recommendation of 1.2 million, 55 can be allocated to that if you wanna, I don't care where the money gets spent, at the end of the day, we're gonna net out, we gotta spend it here, we're gonna save it here, it's fine with me.
It probably is a net, obviously it's a net
Yeah,
at the end.
but that's not a bad idea. I mean, and I don't think Bruce would be mad taking 55, that he didn't think he was gonna get 1.2 anyhow. But we still, we were saying, let's allocate more to catch up with the streets. Like, so if we do take, he does need all of it,
He needs
he
all of it,
needs
I'm
all
not
of it.
suggesting not,
or we
just
can say,
cut
we can
back
add
a little of what we
55.
need to bond.
Right.
I don't know how to explain this clearly, and maybe Sarah's, I think, probably thinking the same thing. If you take 100,000 off the bonded amount, you're not gaining as much as you are taking, how can
Yeah.
you?
55,000 off the,
Off
It's
the
a
bottom
capital
line
project.
of the capital, because the-
stretches out over
well, all
time.
you're paying is a small amount of that.
I understand.
And the time discount of money.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess we're just
And all
spitballing,
of-
which is why I think
all
it
of
needs
that.
to be an agenda item at
I'm-
some point. We have to, I'm sure Tom and
Well,
Don
you-
are gonna wanna contribute.
What you could also do is do the 55,000 for the Pine Knoll with the mitigation money. The remaining 45 give as additional for the streets or the sidewalk or something like that that we know are longer-term DPW things. And then maybe part of the plan is that the mitigation money, the remaining
Going
amount of it goes
forward
towards
goes to
roads.
roads.
You know
Yeah.
that you're gonna
Because
get
for
it
the
over
next 4
5
years,
years,
it's-
so knowing
It's money that we
400,000,
hadn't planned on.
that we need.
then,
That
maybe
we need.
that's
Yeah.
a better thing, because that is impacted by the casino, that they have to
For the
drive there.
condition of the roads, right.
Yeah,
And we're
no,
not
I
gonna bond for
agree.
roads every year,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
Maybe
Um,
next year.
So you'll have a bigger impact rather than splitting it out of the 1.2, which then the 55,000 doesn't bond quite the same way, and it just adds extra complication that
Right.
I don't think is really necessary.
I would just
It's a good
ask-
problem to have, though. I forgot
It
about
is.
it.
I
So,
would just
Well,
ask, what-
remember I
made-
told
you
you I
made my
had an
night.
idea
Exactly.
and I
Yes,
wasn't going
made
to
my night.
share it? That was
Exactly.
it.
You use that
Was
100
that-
grand for anything.
Remember I mentioned that with Pine Knoll that we had a funding idea,
Yes,
but I
you
wasn't
did.
ready? That's
Yeah,
what it was.
we had talked about it a while back.
Originally
yeah.
it was
Good stuff.
The question I have is, exactly what can we use that mitigation money for?
Anything.
It sounds like it's open-ended, right?
It's totally open-ended,
So
which
we have
in
to
some ways is.
prioritize, we just have to prioritize what we want as a group. Where do we want to spend those funds? you
It
know?
gives us the latitude to spend, but it's also a dangerous caveat to spend it on anything because you could be imprudent and say, well, let's buy a, I don't know, pick something and
A
then
yacht.
down the road, some well-intentioned resident taxpayers say,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Why didn't you
Why
use
didn't
it
you
for
use it for the
sidewalks
problem
or-
it might have created? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable
That's,
being
yeah.
ultra-conservative around the intent of getting that money.
So maybe
And I-
it should be an agenda item sooner than
Yeah,
later.
why not?
And
And I would think, through the chair, I would think the department heads are probably being somewhat, cognizant of the fact that if they see any potential mitigating factors due to the casino, that they would bring it to our attention, so.
Yes. Right,
So we're
and
not
the chief
spending the
has
money
not
on
done
something
that
else, and
yet.
all of a sudden saying to
Yeah.
MGM, we got this problem, they'll say, well, have a nice day, because you're spending on everything else, so.
I would recommend that whatever the committee decides to use those funds for, I recommend choosing the least number of items, because then when it comes up a couple of years down the road, it's much easier to say it was spent on project A and B rather than it was spent on these 30 items.
Well, yes, because
Which
that's
gets
when
very
you get
complicated to
yourself
track
into
and
trouble,
to
too.
explain and all of that.
And
So I
also
would recommend.
ineffective, like Paul is saying,
Exactly.
ineffective to say, yeah, we're using it for something to mitigate and going forward.
Mhm.
We need more after the 5 years. Yeah, the department heads have been asked as well, if they have
Mhm.
a need or a reason for the money. So.
Okay.
Okay. Council, have any other questions?
Sarah and I are always available to y'all.
Okay.
Except tomorrow, yeah.
Well, I'm here tomorrow.
Okay.
That's why we trade off.
Just a quick comment, I mean, appreciate you guys putting the thought into it, it's better than I was anticipating. There were some improvements, so it's heading in the right direction. Still have work to do, but it's definitely heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Okay then. We are now to new business and summary, action items for next meeting. Everybody sharpen your pencils and look over and
What are
make
the
a
action?
collection, list of things to ask or talk about.
I would just say one of the action items is exactly what we just talked about, the mitigation.
Yeah.
Mitigation.
Mhm.
We can put it on an agenda for the next meeting.
Mhm.
Tom?
The mitigation fund, to make sure the council is in agreement or in majority agreement on how they should best be spent.
Yeah, because if we decide that the best project at this particular time is to pave Pine Knoll with some of that money, then we have to, if not, then we ought to maybe figure out what else or how else we would potentially address that project.
And when the time comes in that agreement where the community sits with the gaming commission or the powers that be on that side of the table, we have to have in the record why we spent what we did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it would behoove us to, just so we can track our thinking on that. So I think that should be an action item for next time. Anything else? Okay, hearing none, then we can entertain a motion for adjournment. Motion been made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned at 7:08 PM, and we will be back in session on Tuesday, May 14th, for our public hearing of our annual proposed budget. Thank you and good evening.